Good evening. Hello, everybody. Please confirm that you can see me and hear me. Is everything correct? Okay. Great. Thank you very much for this confirmation. And so I think that we can start. Hello, one more time. It's very nice to have all of you here today. And my name is Marcin Maciąg. I am the CEO and co-founder of Lifeline Diag Laboratory. Our laboratory specializes in hair elemental analysis. This is a test. The test assesses the level of nutrition of our body at the possible load on it with heavy metals. Today, I am pleased to invite you to the webinar entitled Fertility, Why is it such a problem for men and women, and important facts to know, preconception through pregnancy and in lactation, with Dr. Golnush Golshirazi as a host. Dr. Golnush studied natural sciences and specialized in genetics at the University of Cambridge. Her final work in this field was completed at the Gurdon Institute on the genetics of embryo development. She completed her PhD at Royal Holloway, working on gene therapy for neuromuscular disease. The project was focused on the development of anti-fibrotic antisense-based drugs to tackle fibrotic replacement of muscle in Duchenne muscular dystrophy patients. Dr. Golnush has vast experience in research, lab work, teaching, and management of care in orphanages in developing countries. She has been part of leadership and marketing programs and retains a special interest in products and service development for the integration of scientific, health-related knowledge and healthcare systems. As a scientist in this day and age, she believes we need to build a bridge between the general knowledge of the public and that of advanced sciences, which can help to achieve a better understanding of health principles in today's society and for future generations. Dr. Golnush, it's a pleasure for me to have you today as a host, so please connect with us and start your webinar. Welcome.
Hi, thank you, Martin. I hope I'm saying that correct. Thank you for that lovely introduction. Yeah, my name is Golnush, and as Martin already mentioned, I am a scientist and a doctor in genetics. I'm also the co-founder of ScreenMe, where we work on helping individuals and couples optimize their fertility. And my co-founder, Dr. Łukasz Czyszewski, is also a geneticist at the Royal Holloway University of London. So I'm really, really happy to be here and get this chance to talk to you about a very, very important topic that has been in the news in the UK recently, especially about fertility, why it's important, and why is there such a boom. Suddenly we're all talking about fertility and how can we know more about our fertility? How can we improve our fertility? So first of all, the current trends. We are currently seeing globally a massive decline in fertility rates. We are currently having the lowest fertility rates in the past 100 years. In the last 50 years, fertility rates have halved, which is a huge decline. And there's actually a few reasons that this is due to. One of them is that people are having less children. And the reason that's happening is some of it is to do with society and family models. But the other is that women specifically are actually choosing to have children later in life. This is very significant because as a woman, our fertility or reproductive capability declines with age. So after the age of 30, we see a significant decline in a woman's fertility. And after the age of 35, it's a very, very drastic decline. And that carries on around our early 40s when conceiving is very difficult. So the choice that women are making to leave having children later in life has a role to play in the declining fertility rates. The other is the increasing infertility rates. So more and more couples are actually visiting fertility clinics because they're struggling to conceive. And this is due to multiple reasons. One of them being the declining men's fertility. So it's not just women's factor. We are actually seeing that in an analysis of more than 100 fertility studies, reports 50 to 60% decline in sperm counts between 1973 and 2011. And in 2019, a Swiss study confirmed that 62% of young males had abnormal sperm. So there's also a male factor. At the same time, we're seeing a drastic increase in hormonal imbalance and diagnosis of female conditions such as polycystic ovarian syndrome or PCOS and endometriosis, which has led to women struggling to conceive. So we are faced in a way with a pandemic of hormonal imbalance and declining fertility. So these are two factors playing at the lower fertility that we see. But what is infertility? So when do we actually say someone is struggling with infertility? That's when the inability to conceive despite regular unprotected sex for a period of 12 months or more. So, if you're thinking about having a child, usually doctors will not help unless you've tried for 12 months and you haven't succeeded. If you are over the age of 35, usually 6 months is enough before doctors actually do provide help and testing. At the moment, it is thought that 1 in 7 couples anywhere in the world, worldwide, in any country, actually struggle to conceive. So it's not something that is rare or that people are going through alone. Some of those infertility cases have explanations. So once you do a test or some scans, you find that there is either a structural issue or a disease that's causing the infertility. But actually, around 45% of infertility cases are unexplained, which means that doctors don't find any reason why those individuals or couples cannot conceive or have a child. So that really covers the basis of the global fertility issues that we are facing and the fact that infertility is on the rise. But so why is fertility important? Obviously, fertility is important to any man or woman who wants to have a child. And so if we are choosing to delay starting a family, it means that we have to be more proactive about our fertility. We need to have more information about our health and fertility, and we need to do more about it. So even though a woman's fertility declines with age, that means that we are born with a certain number of eggs in our ovaries, and we lose a certain amount every month from the time that we actually start having periods or we reach puberty. Even though we lose the number of those eggs, the quality of those eggs are important. So we can't control the number of those eggs, but we can control the quality of those eggs. So it's important that as women, we have access to testing and insight into our health and into our fertility so that we can make informed decisions. We can plan our lives and we can also be proactive about improving egg quality. At the same time, even though men's age does not necessarily affect their fertility in a significant way as it does in women, studies have shown that men over the age of 45, even if their partners are in their early 30s, there's an increased risk of miscarriage, which indicates that after the age of around 45, sperm quality declines and it increases the risk of miscarriage. So again, it's really important for men to be aware of their fertility and be proactive about improving sperm quality before you actually start trying to conceive. So what factors actually impact fertility? Multiple factors. If we overlook disease, so there are certain diseases that compromise fertility, and there are certain structural issues that stop people from having being pregnant or having babies. There are factors that do actually impact our fertility as we age. So one of them is nutrition. Everything that happens in our body needs nutrients. And that includes our fertility. Actually, egg cells, so the eggs that we have in our ovaries, have more mitochondria, which are energy producing. They're like batteries of a cell. So those eggs have more mitochondria than the heart cells do. That means that eggs require more energy to actually develop than our heart requires to beat all the time. This indicates how important nutrition and nutrients are for egg health and fertility. At the same time, men produce a lot of sperm every day. And it's very, very important that we realize that that process needs a lot of energy, a lot of nutrients. And also, both those processes, egg and sperm, are affected by toxins and environmental toxins. So these are pollutions, endocrine disruptors, which are everywhere in plastics, in our makeup, in our face creams and products. As well as lifestyles, things like stress, exercise, smoking, and alcohol. So these are all factors that very, very directly impact our fertility. But there are things like genetics at play as well. Our fertility is actually impacted by what our mother was eating while she was pregnant or drinking while she was pregnant, and also the genes that we inherit from our parents and our ancestors. And the last factor is age, that we already spoke about. So we have to differentiate here. There are things that are out of our control, things like disease that we may be born with or have, or structural issues that we can't change. And those factors are out of our control, and they're usually diagnosed very quickly by the medical community, and they can be treated. But there are factors that are within our control, and it's important that we pay attention to those factors. So those factors here include our nutrition, our lifestyle, our environment. And we can also be aware of our age and make plans according to that. So when it comes to eating for fertility, a lot of people ask, does it actually matter? Does it actually matter what I eat? Does that really impact my fertility? And the scientific answer is yes. What you eat definitely impacts your fertility. There was a study done by the University of Sheffield, I believe, if I'm correct, where they actually had couples who were trying to conceive. And some of those couples were put on fertility-friendly diets and supplementation, and other couples were not. And there was a significant correlation where we found that couples who did go on a fertility-friendly diet and took the correct supplementation actually conceived a lot faster than couples who did not. So we know that eating makes a difference. In women, we actually knew that before any studies were done. As women, we are very aware that as soon as we change our diet significantly, maybe some foods affect our periods, our hormones, how much pain we have. So we know that what we eat impacts our hormones, our bodies. As soon as we have too much stress, for example, at exam times or job gets stressful, we might miss a period, or our periods may be late. Again, signs that our lifestyle and diet impacts our reproductive health. In men, exactly the same way. You can see that upon diet, for example, drinking can reduce your capability to perform. So erections are compromised. And they also impact sperm health, which you're not aware of, but they do. Everyone's unique. Everyone's body has their own unique needs. That's why it's important to actually find out what your body is lacking or what your body needs as an individual, and adapt your diet to those needs. And also take supplementation according to your needs. Supplementing when you don't need it can actually be harmful. So it's really, really important to work with professionals and get the help you need in tailoring your diet to improve your fertility and optimize your chances of a successful conception and also having a healthy baby. But as a general kind of rule of thumb, we have some advice to give. Some of the very well-known foods which are known to be bad for fertility are things like processed foods. So processed foods include anything that doesn't look like it came from the garden, some farm, or an animal. So if your great grandmother doesn't recognize the food, it's probably processed. So, anything that you buy from a packet is processed. Your processed carbohydrates include also things like pasta and rice, your refined sugars. Sugars are one of the most toxic things for your hormones. If we imagine our sugar levels to be like little bumps in the road, and I'm sure the men here would know that they don't want to drive over speed bumps, very fast. It damages the car. Now, our blood sugar levels do the same thing. If you have very kind of unstable blood sugar levels, you have kind of this going up and down curves of blood sugar. And what that does is that it kind of tells your ovaries that there's sugar there all the time and insulin there all the time, and your ovaries stop responding to those sugar levels and insulin levels. And we call it, it's a bit like your ovaries have diabetes. They stop responding to those insulin levels. And because of that, they start producing more testosterone and less estrogen. And that's when we start to get those excess hairs around and acne and hair loss. So it's really important to regulate your sugar levels to have healthy hormones and healthy sperm and egg. So avoiding refined sugars and combining your sugary food like your fruit with proteins can really help control your blood sugar levels. The other is bad fats. So we want to be avoiding bad fats. Now, we need fats in our diet, but what are bad fats? Fats that have been processed. So here we're talking about the meat pies, the processed meats like the ready-made sausages, and so on. So we want to be avoiding saturated processed animal fats. And instead, we want to be taking more of our good fats, which are found in fish, for example, or chia seeds and avocados, where the omega-3s are. We want to also increase our fiber intake, which can help control our sugar levels, and make sure that we're eating enough proteins. Now, proteins are what give our body amino acids, and amino acids are very important to make the things that we need in our body, including our eggs, our sperm, even our uterine wall. So enough protein is also key. Something that hasn't been mentioned on this slide, but it's also very, very important, is actually good bacteria. Now, this is a very new field in science, which is your microbiome. And this is the bacteria that lives in your gut, in your intestines, and in women, also in your vagina. And these bacteria are very important. So when it comes to the gut bacteria, these gut bacteria are really important in regulating your weight, your immune system, and your hormones. So you want to make sure that in your gut you have diverse bacteria. So including probiotic foods is really, really important. I know in Poland, probiotic foods are very popular, but everywhere in the world, even in England now, we see those probiotic foods everywhere, like sauerkraut, kimchi, and so on. So including probiotic foods in our daily diet can be a good step towards improving our fertility health as well. Now, I spoke about how we're all different. And so we need to tailor our diets based on our individual needs. And that's very, very true. And this is what we do at ScreenMe. So at ScreenMe, we provide certain testing for microbiomes, and then we tailor food to improve fertility and health as a whole. But so what kind of testing should you be looking at when you are thinking about fertility? Now, First thing is your hormones and your egg reserves and sperm health. So those are the first things that you look at when you want to look at your fertility health. When it comes to women's egg reserves, by measuring your AMH levels, you can actually know where you are in your egg reserves, how much eggs you have, how many eggs you have in your ovaries, and if you should start thinking about starting a family sooner than later. Again, with men, doing a sperm health analysis, it's a semen count, and we look at the sperm number, and the sperm health is very useful in knowing where you stand. Measuring hormones such as LH, FSH, your thyroid, your testosterone levels can also be very, very useful in giving you an idea if you're actually facing hormonal imbalance or not. The other is your, something that's not often spoken about or looked at by the medical community is your nutritional status when it comes to your fertility. So, things like your vitamin D, your folate, B12, your minerals like iron, magnesium, zinc are very, very important when it comes to a healthy fertility status and healthy eggs and sperm, as well as being able to actually go through pregnancy in a healthy manner and growing a healthy embryo. So it's really important to actually take action before getting pregnant and trying to conceive rather than once you're already pregnant. So doing these tests, finding out where you stand in terms of your nutritional deficiencies and your hormonal balance can really help you optimize those factors so that you actually get pregnant faster and you have a higher chance of having a healthier baby. There are other testings that are used to rule out structural issues and also disease, which can also be tested through your practitioners. The other test that is possible to do is your gut microbiome and vaginal microbiome testing. Now, this is when we look at the bacteria that live in your gut and also bacteria that live in your vagina. Now, studies have shown that women who have healthier vaginal microbiome have lower risk of sexually transmitted infections, including HPV, as well as BV, and also lower risk of miscarriage. So it's also quite beneficial to be looking at those bacterial communities. And as we know, so Lifeline actually do provide hair mineral testing and toxicity, both of which can be a good representation of where your body stands and how those things like your mineral status and the toxicity are affecting your fertility. I'm sorry, I'm getting used to this kind of scrolling on this presentation. So there we go. So what kind of female fertility testing are we actually looking at? So in terms of structural, women can have multiple things affecting their fertility. In terms of diseases, these can be things like endometriosis, polycystic ovarian syndrome, there can be fibroids, there can also be structural issues like the blocking of fallopian tubes, as well as the structure of the uterus or pelvic instabilities. So all of these things can actually be looked at from a structural perspective. Scans are used to see if there's any cysts or growths, abnormal growths around the ovaries or the uterus, as well as to see if the fallopian tubes are blocked. And those are some tests that are done quite early on in investigations if you do have any symptoms of issues affecting your reproductive health. In terms of functional testing, there are hormones that look at anovulation, which is when you actually don't ovulate. So some women don't have periods at all, and that can be due to hormonal imbalances, which can actually be treated from a functional medicine perspective through your nutrition, your diet, as well. There's also the chance of early menopause that we're actually seeing more and more of, and testing for hormones can rule that out. And that's quite important. I mean, we believe that a woman should really have annual checks of her fertility to keep up with those hormonal changes and make informed decisions. And there are also tests for your immune system, which can increase your risk of miscarriage. things that people don't think of, we also get asked are, does my weight affect my fertility? Can a weight actually affect fertility? The definite answer is yes. We know that weight directly affects fertility. Women and men actually, but let's talk about women for the time being. Women who are overweight or underweight are more likely to have problems ovulating, and you need ovulating, which is when an egg is released from your ovary. So if your ovulation is not working properly, then you can't become pregnant. So your weight really does impact your ability to ovulate regularly and in a healthy manner. So it's important to actually, not just if you're overweight, but if you're underweight as well, to work towards reaching an optimum weight for you as an individual. That doesn't mean that there is a one size to be, or one way to look. It's definitely, every individual is unique. And we've seen with clients that sometimes when we help a client lose weight, they start ovulating a lot faster than we think. So even when they're still, their BMI might be over the threshold, but they go back to normal ovulation. So there isn't a perfect weight. It's just about getting to the right weight for you to allow your body to start ovulating again and controlling your hormones in a healthy manner. There is also methylation and oxidative stress tests, both of which impact fertility, but those are a bit too, I think, too complicated, and they need their own webinars to go into, actually. But oxidative stress is actually quite important when it comes to sperm health as well. Now, oxidative stress is when your body produces a lot of reactive oxygen species. And this is when your body is under a lot of stress. And stress doesn't necessarily mean the stress we experience outside of us. It can also mean the stress that our body experiences on the inside. So if our body is under a lot of stress from toxins, for example, so if you're drinking too much, the body will be under a lot of stress, and there will be a lot of reacting oxygen species, which directly impact the DNA in the sperm. So the sperm quality goes down quite fast when there's oxidative stress at play. And one of the key things to kind of tackle when it comes to male fertility is reducing oxidative stress. And how do we do that? Well, by detoxing. We try to reduce the toxin exposure in the environment. This includes things like perfumes, candles that are not very clean or eco-friendly, things like smoking, drinking, as well as our diet. So reducing the bad fats, increasing fiber intake, and trying to get our weight to a normal, healthy weight in order to reduce the oxidative stress. We also spoke about environmental kind of toxins, which can be very detrimental to our hormones and our fertility. So things like heavy metal toxicity, recreational drugs, medicinal effects, these are all environmental toxins that do affect our fertility. Now, men as well can do fertility testing. It's important that men also undergo fertility testing. Structural wise, men can also have problems. This involves usually their testes and the testicles. There may be some blockage in the tubes in the testes. There might be dilation of localized veins. So when men do visit fertility clinics to be tested, there will be some structural testing, and some may be invasive. But the non-invasive testing includes taking a sperm sample and evaluating the quality and the quantity of the sperm, as well as the liquid or the semen that the sperm actually lies in, which is quite important. Same time, sex hormones are also very important for male fertility. We're seeing more and more men with increased estrogen levels and reduced testosterone levels. And this can be due to environmental toxins which mimic your estrogen. So things like plastics, so drinking from plastic bottles. Now, plastics contain these little kind of microplastic molecules which get into our body and they pretend to be estrogen. And our body reacts as if we do have that excess estrogen. And so there is hormonal chaos when that happens in a man. And so we have reduced sperm quality and quantity. The same as women. So it's funny, we always ask, people ask us, so what's good for male fertility and what's good for female fertility? Often, what's good for female fertility is also good for male fertility, because our bodies are not that different on a basic level. So, what helps egg health often helps sperm health. The things that are bad for egg health are often bad for sperm health, and so on. So, excuse me, I'm in the office, so you're going to have to ignore that. So it's really important to go on into this journey together as a couple. Your diets can be the same. The things you have to avoid in terms of environmental toxins are also the same. It's not that different. When it comes to fertility. What is different when we come to actually advising men in fertility is the conditions they keep their testes in. So testicles are outside of the body for a very good reason. And that's because they're meant to be kept cool. And so when men wear very tight underwear or tight trousers, that can actually increase the temperature of the testes and impact the quality of the sperm. The testes can't make good quality, healthy sperm when they're very warm. So this is why when men are trying to conceive, we often recommend to avoid very hot baths and showers, not to put laptops on your laps because that can again heat up the testes, and also wear looser underwear as well as trousers. So we had a lot of recommend. So what's a recipe for making a baby? And this recipe is different for everyone, but we can put some stuff together. So you need one healthy egg. So as women, even if you're in your 30s and you don't have a baby, that's okay. It's not going to finish overnight. All you need is a good egg. So it's important to focus your energy in improving the quality of that egg. And you need one good egg and millions of healthy, well-shaped mobile sperm. So no pressure on the men there. But these are the two things that you need to actually conceive successfully. In order to get those two things, there are vitamins and minerals which are essential. So things like vitamin B12, E, D, folate, and trace minerals like copper, iodine, selenium, and zinc are very, very important. Again, vitamin A, E, and folate and copper are really important for transforming developing cells into an embryo. And that's why it's important to carry on our fertility-friendly diet into pregnancy, not stop as soon as we find out we are pregnant. So based on this, it's really quite advisable for all women of reproductive age to be on a good prenatal. And a prenatal is a multivitamin that is designed to support your reproductive health prior to getting pregnant and into pregnancy. So we always suggest that a woman of reproductive age, so this is women between the age of 18 up onto 40, 45, to be taking a good prenatal. Men of reproductive age are also advised to take a good multivitamin to support their health and also their sperm quality. There are now popular actually multivitamins that are tailored for male fertility, which are also very, very good. So it's worth doing your research in that field as well, and understanding what's happening on that side of things as well. In terms of energy intake, especially for women, it's very, very important that you actually meet your energy requirements. If you don't eat enough, you're not going to make good eggs, and you won't be able to support a pregnancy. So if your body is not meeting its energy needs, it will immediately tell your brain that, hey, we're not in a good environment. There isn't enough food. We have to go into survival mode. So what do we need to shut out? The first thing that your body shuts off is your fertility, because it's not essential. It's not part of your survival mechanism. So it's really important to be meeting your energy requirements. But that, again, is very individual to you. So you do need to kind of go through that. There's also things like amino acids, which are very important. You can get this from ensuring that you eat an adequate amount of protein. So we usually say when you look at your plate, we're looking at around a quarter of your portion should actually be good, healthy proteins. Making sure that you are hydrated and getting enough minerals and electrolytes is also very important as well. Something that people don't often talk about is how your nutrition actually impacts your vaginal pH and your mucus production. As women, our vagina is actually one of the gatekeepers to our body, and it's really, really important how healthy that vagina is. When we're not fertile, our vagina is very, very lethal. It's meant to be very acidic to fight away all the pathogens, and also sperm, because it doesn't want sperm at that point. So it's very toxic even to sperm. When we are fertile, it's important that our vagina reacts to our hormones and produces a much less acidic environment that is very friendly to sperm, and it allows the passage of sperm to the eggs. And our diet, our micronutrients and macronutrients, including our omega-3 intake, so DHA especially, is very important for our vaginal health. I am looking at the time, so Marcin, if ever I'm running over, you should just let me know. So we move on to the endocrine disrupting chemicals. So endocrine disrupting chemicals are a mixture of chemicals that interfere with the way hormones work in the body, and they can change how sensitive our body is to different hormones. It's really important that we try and remove those endocrine disrupting chemicals from our surroundings. And these include things like BPA, DDTs, phthalates, that affect the way our body processes hormones and gets rid of hormones. And these endocrine disrupting chemicals can be found in air, soil, water supply, food sources. And this may sound very scary. It's like, oh my God, what do I do? It's really impossible to eliminate endocrine disrupting chemicals. What we can do is reduce our exposure to them. And the best place to start is in the kitchen. So the best thing to do is to stop using plasticware. So don't keep food in plastic Tupperware. Don't drink from plastic bottles. If you manage to do that, so if you manage to actually eliminate plasticware from your kitchen, then you are on a very good route to avoiding endocrine disrupting chemicals. The other is makeup and self-care products, especially for women who you tend to use these products more. It's really quite important to focus on trying to find alternative clean products. And what we can do is we can actually get in touch with me through our Instagram or our email, and we can share with you some brands that do provide clean makeup and self-care products. Before we kind of head towards the time ending, I want to talk to you about the microbiome. Because it's a very new area, it's a very exciting area, and it's one that is very important when it comes to fertility. So the gut microbiome consists of all the bacteria that live inside your gut. And we actually have more bacterial DNA in our body than we do human DNA. And this shows you how important those bacteria are for our everyday life, including our fertility. Now, scientific research has shown that this bacterial environment in our gut is very important in managing our weight, our hormonal balance, so getting rid of old hormones, increasing energy levels, fertility, chances of conception and also miscarriage, boosting immunity, and also improving mood. So we know that these bacteria are very, very important. And it's really quite worthwhile to crack down on your digestive system, because these bacteria are very responsive to what you eat. So, you can really change them. You can have control over how healthy this bacterial environment is. So by actually considering a gut microbiome test, you can find out if you have the right probiotics, which are the good bacteria in your gut, and also to see if your gut bacteria is diverse enough. And that diversity is actually one of the most important indicators of your gut health. Now, an interesting fact about the gut microbiome is when women give birth through natural birth, the baby actually inherits that bacteria. So the first seeding of the gut bacteria in a baby is at birth from their mother. So when the baby is pushed through the vaginal canal and out, the baby actually gulps. He or she actually eats that bacteria from the mother's gut. And that is the kind of kickstart to that baby's immune system and metabolism. So improving the gut microbiome prior to conception not only helps improve hormonal health and your chances of a healthy conception, but it also helps you give your baby in the future a really good kickstart in life. So that's something that's quite useful to focus on. And how do we improve gut microbiome? By including probiotic foods in our diet on a daily basis, and also increasing the types of fiber that we eat. So the more colorful your food, the more fiber types you're eating, and that would be a good thing. Now, the other microbiome is the vaginal microbiome. The vagina in a woman is again the gatekeeper to her reproductive and immune health. And unlike the gut, we don't want too many different bacteria in the vagina. As a matter of fact, we only want a dominance of one bacterial type, and that's lactobacillus. So we know that when a woman's vagina is not healthy and there is too many different types of bacteria living in there, there is an increased chance of transmitted sexual infections, so STIs, sexually transmitted infections, as well as things like BV, so bacterial vaginosis, thrush, and also vaginal symptoms like very sore vaginas, painful sex, and so on. There's also a very strong correlation between poor vaginal health and risk of recurrent miscarriage. So, that inflammation that's caused by poor vaginal health can actually cause the embryo to be lost before you even know you're pregnant. So it's really important to know that your vagina is in good health and also do what you need prior to getting pregnant. There's also studies showing that women who are undergoing IVF have better chances of success if they have a healthier vaginal microbiome. Because again, the vaginal microbiome impacts the inflammation in the pelvic area, as well as the chances of the embryo actually managing to take root in the uterus. So just to wrap up, fertility is important. It's important that we are proactive about fertility. We start thinking about our fertility before we actually decide to start a family. We can test our fertility health using hormonal and nutritional testing, as well as structural testing. We can take charge of our fertility and improve our fertility through optimizing our diet, our lifestyle, our supplements, as well as our gut and vaginal microbiome. In terms of testing, functional testing that's available, the hair analysis that's offered through this fantastic company is very useful in looking at your nutrients, your mineral levels, as well as toxicity. But also blood tests for your nutritional deficiencies can also be very useful, as well as vaginal and microbiome testing that we can provide at ScreenMe. And we do provide vaginal and gut microbiome testing worldwide as well. So that's something that we can also help with. I hope this has been useful. I know this is a lot of information to kind of try and fit in around 40 minutes of time that we had today. But feel free to follow us on ScreenMe_health on Instagram and ask any questions you may have. And also get in touch with us directly if you have any questions or need any help. I'm also happy to answer any questions here while I'm here. So please do feel free to type in the chat box while we're here. And I hope this has been useful. No, you're very, very welcome. So I think there is one question about uterus myomas, I believe. I don't know if the lady who asked is still with us. I'm assuming we're talking about fibroids here, which are a type of uterus myomas, and the reason it's most women, majority of women actually do experience uterus fibroids, and these are non-cancerous growths that develop around the uterus. Now, usually if not all fibroids actually interfere with fertility, but some do, depending on where they are and how big they are. These can be surgically removed. So usually they are surgically treated and removed. In terms of them recurring or why they actually occur, it is thought to be hormonally related. So hormonal imbalance is what we're looking at when we talk about fibroids and uterus myomas. So focusing on balancing hormones, reducing your exposure to endocrine disruptors, having a look at your estrogen levels can be very, very useful. Feel free to message me and we can talk about that more specifically because this does depend on your history. And I believe that's all the questions, and you're very welcome. I'm glad this was useful. Martin, I'll hand it over to you.
Dr. Golnish, thank you very much for this webinar. Thank you for your knowledge. We really appreciate it. And I believe and I hope that we'll meet in the near future with the next webinar, because it was a really good one and there was a lot of great knowledge for all of us. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And stay with us. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook to see the next webinars for you. Thank you very much. Have a great evening, great night. Bye-bye.